The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows over the quiet rest stop. It was the kind of place most people pass through without a second thought. A few gas pumps, vending machines humming inside a dimly lit building, and a distant hum of the highway stretching endlessly in both directions. Cars came and went, travelers taking a quick break before moving on. But for one young girl, this wasn't just a stop. It was a silent call for help. She sat on the worn-out wooden bench outside the small convenience store, her dark brown eyes scanning the passing cars, her small hands fidgeting in her lap. She looked about 12 or 13, her curly hair pulled into a loose ponytail, wearing a hoodie that seemed just a little too big for her. Beside her, a tall man, white broad-shouldered, with an air of quiet authority, stood sipping his coffee. To anyone watching, they looked like a father and daughter on a road trip. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary. But if you looked closer, if you really paid attention, something was off. The girl barely spoke. She kept her gaze low, shoulders slightly hunched, and every time the man moved, her body tensed just a little. She wasn't relaxed the way a kid should be around a parent. And then there was her hand, the subtle but deliberate motion of her fingers curling in and out in a pattern. A small movement, so small that most people wouldn't even notice. But one person did. A Marine, filling up his truck just a few feet away, caught sight of the girl. He was on his way home, dressed casually in jeans and a t-shirt, but there was something about the way he carried himself that still screamed military. Alert, aware, always watching his surroundings. At first, he didn't think much of the girl, just another traveler. But then he saw her fingers move again. A pattern, a sign. It was almost imperceptible, but he recognized it instantly. His heart kicked up a notch. That wasn't just any hand signal. That was the universal distress gesture. A silent plea for help. He turned slowly, pretending to check his phone while keeping his eyes on the girl. She glanced up briefly, just for a second, and their eyes met. It was fleeting, but in that instant he saw it. Fear. Real fear. The kind that made his instincts go on high alert. He exhaled, steadying himself, thinking fast. He'd seen this kind of situation before. Training kicked in. There were two possibilities. Either this was a misunderstanding, or this girl was in real danger. And if it was the latter, he had only moments to act. The man next to her, her supposed father, shifted on his feet, glancing around the parking lot. He didn't seem nervous. If anything, he looked completely in control, sipping his coffee like he had all the time in the world. But the Marine had seen enough in his years of service to know that danger didn't always come in obvious forms. The girl swallowed hard, her fingers twitching slightly before she pressed her hands flat against her knees. The message was clear. She couldn't speak. She couldn't run. But she needed help. The Marine clenched his jaw. He had to be smart. One wrong move, and this guy could get spooked, take off, and disappear with the girl. He couldn't let that happen. He took a step closer, pretending to stretch, rolling his shoulders like he was just another tired traveler. The girl's eyes flickered to him again, hopeful but wary. She didn't know him, but right now, he might be the only person who had noticed her cry for help. He had seconds to decide. Act too soon, and he could make things worse. Wait too long, and the opportunity could be gone. Then, the man looked at his watch and put a firm hand on the girl's shoulder. "Time to go," he said. The girl didn't move right away. She hesitated just a little. It was subtle, but the Marine saw it. His muscles tensed. This was it, the moment of truth. And then, in a voice just above a whisper, she spoke. "Please," she said, barely audible. One word. That was all it took. The Marine's pulse pounded in his ears as he stepped forward, his stance shifting, ready to do whatever it took. This wasn't just another stop on the road. This was a moment that could change everything. And he wasn't about to let her walk away without a fight. The Marine barely breathed as the girl's whisper echoed in his ears. "Please." It wasn't loud. It wasn't desperate. But it carried weight. A quiet plea wrapped in fear, hidden beneath the hum of traffic and the distant chatter of other travelers passing through the rest stop. The man standing beside her, her supposed father, tightened his grip on her shoulder. It wasn't aggressive, not on the surface, but the Marine saw the way her body stiffened in response. The kind of reaction that didn't come from comfort, but from caution. The Marine's heart pounded, but he kept his face neutral. Years of training had taught him how to assess a situation without giving himself away. He had faced dangerous situations before, on deployments, in high-pressure environments, but this was different. There were no weapons drawn, no enemies in sight. Just a girl, a man, and a silent signal for help. The man gave her shoulder a small squeeze. "Let's go," he repeated, his voice calm even. He turned slightly, scanning the parking lot. And for the first time, the Marine saw it. His eyes weren't searching for a car. They were scanning for threats. He was checking to see if anyone was watching them. That was all the Marine needed to know. His instinct screamed that something wasn't right. The girl wasn't behaving like a kid traveling with her dad. She wasn't relaxed, wasn't comfortable. She had called for help in the only way she could. And now, her window was closing. The Marine took a slow step forward, careful not to seem aggressive. If this man was dangerous, he couldn't risk spooking him. He had to play this right. "Hey," the Marine said, casual, like he was just making conversation. "You folks traveling far?" The man's head snapped toward him, his expression unreadable for half a second before he forced a polite smile. "Yeah," he answered, "just passing through." The Marine nodded, his eyes flicking to the girl. She kept her head down, her hands clenched into small fists against her knees. "Nice night for a drive," the Marine continued, keeping his voice light. He gestured toward the vending machines. "I was just about to grab a drink. You want something, kid?" It was subtle, but the girl's fingers twitched again, like she wanted to reach out, like she wanted to take the offer, but she didn't move. The man let out a small chuckle. "She's fine," he said, his grip on her shoulder tightening just slightly. "We're in a bit of a hurry." The Marine's jaw tightened, but he forced a smile. "I gotcha," he said. "Safe travels, then." He turned slightly, like he was about to walk away, but he wasn't going anywhere, because now he knew. The way the man had answered so quickly, the way he controlled the conversation, the way the girl didn't even attempt to speak for herself. It was all adding up. This wasn't her dad. The Marine had seen enough bad situations in his life to recognize one when it was right in front of him. And this was bad. His mind raced. He needed to act fast, but he couldn't afford to make a mistake. If he called this wrong, he could put the girl in even more danger. He glanced around the rest stop. A few people were walking back to their cars. A trucker stood near the gas pump, stretching his arms. No one else seemed to notice what was happening. The girl still hadn't moved. She sat frozen, her entire body tense. The Marine shifted his weight, his stance adjusting, preparing for whatever came next. He cleared his throat and gave the man a friendly nod. "Actually," he said, voice steady, "before you go, mind giving me a hand?" The man frowned. "With what?" "My truck," the Marine lied smoothly. "I think the battery's acting up. You look like a guy who knows his way around a car." The man hesitated for just a second. A flicker of something crossed his face, annoyance, maybe even suspicion. Then, he exhaled and forced another smile. "Sorry, man," he said, steering the girl forward. "We really have to get going." That was it. The Marine wasn't letting them leave. He took a step closer, blocking their path just slightly. He didn't raise his voice, didn't move aggressively, but his presence alone was enough to shift the energy between them. The girl's breathing hitched. The man stiffened. For a split second, it was a standoff. Then, the girl's voice, small, barely above a whisper, cut through the air. "I don't know him." The Marine's stomach dropped. The man reacted instantly, his grip tightening on the girl's arm. "Let's go," he said sharply. The Marine's hands curled into fists. "You're not going anywhere," he said, his voice low, firm. The man's eyes darkened, his polite facade cracking just slightly. He glanced around again, assessing his options. He knew he had lost control of the situation, and the Marine knew one thing for sure. This was about to get messy. The Marine's body tensed as he watched the man's grip tighten on the girl's arm. She winced, barely noticeable, but he saw it. Every instinct in him screamed to act, to pull her away, to stop this from going any further. But he had to be smart. If this guy felt cornered, he could do something reckless. And if the Marine made the wrong move, the girl could end up in even more danger. The man forced a chuckle, but his eyes flickered with something else, something cold. "Look, man," he said, shifting slightly as if preparing to leave. "I don't know what you think is going on here, but she's my daughter. We're just trying to get on the road." The Marine's jaw tightened. "She just said she doesn't know you." The girl stayed frozen, her eyes darting between them. Fear pulsed through her tiny frame, but there was something else in her expression now. Hope. Like maybe, just maybe, someone had finally seen her. The man let out a slow breath, his patience clearly thinning. "She's just tired," he said, shaking his head. "We've been driving all day. Kids say weird things when they're exhausted. You know how it is." The Marine didn't blink. He had seen deception before, knew what it looked like when someone tried too hard to act natural. This guy was trying to play it cool, but there was an edge to him now, a calculation behind his eyes. A few people walked by, oblivious to the tension between them. A mother led her little boy toward the restroom. A couple got into their car, laughing about something. To them, this was just a normal night at a rest stop. They had no idea what was unfolding just a few feet away. The Marine glanced around, his mind working fast. He needed backup, someone else to notice, someone else to step in. If he escalated this alone, the man might bolt. And if he had a car waiting nearby, he could disappear with the girl before the Marine had a chance to stop him. He turned slightly, acting as if he were just adjusting his stance, but in reality, he was reaching for his phone. One call to the authorities, one signal to anyone else nearby, and this situation could change. But the moment his fingers brushed against his pocket, the man stiffened. He saw it, and in an instant, everything shifted. The man yanked the girl's arm hard, pulling her toward the parking lot. She stumbled, barely able to keep up with his sudden movement. The Marine reacted without thinking. He stepped forward, grabbing the man's wrist before he could take another step. His grip was firm, unshakable, the kind of grip that sent a clear message. "Let her go." The man's entire body went rigid. His eyes flicked down to the Marine's hand on his wrist, then back up to his face. And for the first time, the Marine saw it clearly. This wasn't just a misunderstanding. This wasn't an overprotective father being questioned by a stranger. This was a man who had something to lose. The air between them grew heavier. The girl was breathing fast now, her chest rising and falling in quick, shallow movements. She was scared, but she wasn't running. She was waiting to see if this was the moment everything changed. A truck rumbled into the lot, its headlights sweeping over them for a brief second before shutting off. The Marine took the distraction as a chance. "I'm not letting you take her," he said, his voice calm but unwavering. The man let out a slow, measured breath. Then his lips curved into something that almost looked like a smirk. "You don't know what you're getting yourself into," he said. The Marine's grip didn't loosen. "Neither do you." For a split second, it felt like anything could happen. The man could fight. He could run. He could try to lie his way out of it again. But whatever he chose, the Marine was ready. Then the girl spoke again, barely above a whisper. "He's not my dad." The Marine felt the weight of those words hit him like a hammer. There was no hesitation in her voice. No doubt, she was telling the truth. And now, it was only a matter of whether anyone else would listen before it was too late. The Marine's grip on the man's wrist tightened. His muscles coiled, every nerve of his body screaming to act, to do something. The girl's words still hung in the air, clear, undeniable. "He's not my dad." For a moment, everything seemed to slow. The sounds of the rest stop, the hum of distant engines, the faint beep of a gas pump, the laughter of people who had no idea what was happening, blurred into the background. The Marine's focus narrowed on two things: the girl, standing frozen with wide, terrified eyes, and the man, whose polite mask had finally begun to crack. The man yanked his arm, trying to break free, but the Marine didn't budge. His grip was steel. He'd been in enough tense situations to know that letting go now would be the worst mistake he could make. The man's eyes darted around the lot, assessing his options. He wasn't just nervous, he was calculating, searching for an escape route. The Marine's heart pounded. If this guy had a car nearby, if he had someone waiting for him, this could turn ugly fast. But he couldn't afford to let him go. Not with the girl still trapped under his grip. The girl let out a small, shaky breath. "Please," she whispered again. The Marine knew he had to act now. I'm going to give you one chance, he said, his voice low, controlled. Let her go. Now. The man's jaw tightened. You don't know what you're doing, he hissed, his voice barely audible. The Marine's fingers dug into the man's wrist. I know exactly what I'm doing. A car door slammed nearby. Someone laughed. The world was still moving, unaware of the storm about to break. Then, without warning, the man lunged. It happened fast. He twisted hard, using all his strength to rip his arm free. At the same time, he yanked the girl toward him, gripping her tightly as he spun on his heel, dragging her toward the parking lot. The girl let out a strangled gasp, stumbling to keep up. The Marine's instincts kicked in. He surged forward, grabbing at the man's arm again, but the guy was fast. Too fast. He was already weaving through parked cars, practically dragging the girl behind him. The Marine took off after them. His boots pounded against the pavement as he chased them through the dimly lit lot. He barely registered the startled looks from a few bystanders, the confused glances of people who had no idea what was unfolding right in front of them. The man reached into his pocket. The Marine's pulse spiked. Was he armed? The girl struggled against his grip, her feet slipping as she tried to resist. Stop, she cried, her voice trembling. The Marine was closing the distance. Then, the man made a sudden, desperate move. He shoved the girl forward. She stumbled, falling hard onto the pavement with a gasp. The Marine barely had time to react before the man spun and took off in the opposite direction. He was running. The Marine had a choice. Go after him, or get to the girl. His decision was instant. He rushed to the girl's side, dropping to his knees as she pushed herself up on trembling arms. You okay? He asked, scanning her for injuries. Her breaths came in quick, panicked gasps. She nodded, but she was shaking, her wide eyes flicking toward where the man had disappeared between the cars. He was getting away. The Marine's fists clenched. This wasn't over. Not yet. The Marine kept his arms steady around the girl's shoulders as she trembled beside him. Her breath came in quick, uneven gasps, her body still locked in fear. His eyes darted toward the parking lot, scanning the spaces between cars. The man had disappeared into the shadows, but he couldn't have gone far. Not yet. The Marine's jaw tightened, letting him run and sit right. Every part of him screamed to chase after him, to end this now. But the girl, she was his priority. She was still in danger, and he wasn't about to leave her alone. We need to move, he said, his voice low but firm. Can you walk? She nodded quickly, even though her legs wobbled when she stood. He kept a steadying hand on her back, leading her toward the well-lit area near the convenience store. There were people there, witnesses. The more eyes on them, the safer she would be. But just as they stepped forward, a noise cut through the night. A car engine roared to life. The Marine whipped around just in time to see headlights flash to life from the far end of the lot. A dark SUV lurched forward, tires screeching against the pavement. His stomach dropped. The man wasn't alone. The girl flinched at the sound, gripping the Marine's arm with small, desperate fingers. That's him, she whispered. The SUV swerved sharply, angling toward the lot's exit. But instead of speeding away, it hesitated, its engine revving as if waiting. Waiting for him. The Marine's grip on the girl tightened. His pulse pounded in his ears. The man had a backup plan. For a split second, the Marine considered his options. If he ran toward the vehicle, there was no telling what would happen. The man could have a weapon. He could try to grab the girl again. But if they stood there too long, if they didn't move now. The SUV suddenly lurched forward, barreling toward them. Run, the Marine barked, spinning the girl toward the store. She bolted, her small frame moving faster than he expected, but the SUV wasn't slowing. It was closing the distance fast. The Marine turned, planting his feet firmly as he yanked a metal trash can from the curb. With every ounce of strength he had, he hurled it straight at the windshield. The impact wasn't enough to stop the vehicle, but it was enough to make the driver swerve. Tires screeched as the SUV veered sharply to the left, narrowly missing the Marine by mere feet. The driver hit the brakes for a split second, just long enough for the Marine to get a look inside. His breath caught. There was another person in the car. Not just the man who had taken the girl. Someone else. A second figure in the passenger seat, their face hidden by shadows. Then, just as fast as it had come, the SUV sped off. Its taillights disappeared into the highway traffic, vanishing into the night. The Marine exhaled sharply, his entire body buzzing with adrenaline. This wasn't just some guy trying to get away. This was bigger than that. And now, whoever they were, they knew he was in the way. The Marine stood frozen for a second, watching the SUV disappear into the night. His pulse pounded in his ears, his muscles still tense with the urge to chase, to act. But the girl, she was his priority. He turned quickly, scanning for her. She had made it to the store's entrance, pressed up against the glass, her wide eyes locked on him. She was safe for now. He jogged to her, lowering himself to her eye level. "You okay?" His voice was calmer than he felt. She nodded but didn't speak. Her fingers clutched the fabric of his sleeve, as if letting go meant something worse would happen. He needed to call the authorities. Now, whoever these people were, they were organized, and they weren't going to stop just because they had been interrupted. Just as he pulled out his phone, movement in the parking lot caught his eye. A sedan, its lights off, was rolling slowly past the gas pumps. His body tensed. Someone was still watching. He placed a firm hand on the girl's shoulder and guided her inside the store. The cashier looked up from behind the counter, barely noticing them at first, but the Marine made sure his voice was loud enough to be heard. "Lock the doors." The cashier blinked. "Huh, now." Something in his tone made the young man behind the register swallow hard. He hesitated only for a second before reaching down and hitting the switch. The automatic doors let out a quiet beep before sealing shut. The girl gripped the counter, her breathing still shaky. The Marine crouched beside her, lowering his voice. "Listen to me. I need you to tell me your name." She hesitated. Then, so quietly he almost didn't hear, she whispered, "Maya." He gave her a reassuring nod. "Maya, you're safe now. I promise. But I need you to tell me, who was that man?" Her lips trembled. "I don't know his name," she admitted. He took me." The Marine's stomach turned. "From where?" Her hands tightened into small fists. "Home." A tear slid down her cheek. "My real dad. He's looking for me." The words hit him hard. This wasn't a random kidnapping. This was a child who had been stolen. His fingers tightened around his phone as he dialed. The moment the operator answered, he gave them everything. His location, the description of the vehicle, everything Maya had told him. But just as he was finishing, Maya let out a small, sharp gasp. She was staring past him, out the glass storefront. The sedan had stopped. A figure stepped out. Not the man from before. Someone else. The Marine turned slowly, his grip tightening on the phone. The figure took a step forward, pausing just outside the store. Then, in the glow of the streetlights, the Marine saw the flash of a badge. A cop. For the first time that night, uncertainty crept into the Marine's gut. Something wasn't right. And when Maya's hand clutched his arm again, her voice was barely above a whisper. "That's him." The Marine's breath caught. The man in uniform, the one who was supposed to help, was the one she feared the most. The Marine didn't move. His body was tense, every instinct telling him to be ready. Maya's grip on his arm tightened, her small fingers pressing into his skin as she stared at the man outside with wide, fearful eyes. The officer stood still for a moment, then lifted a hand, motioning for them to come out. His expression was unreadable, his badge catching the glow of the streetlights. The Marine's mind raced. This wasn't a coincidence. The SUV, the second figure in the car, and now an officer showing up right after, this was connected. The cashier behind the counter shifted uneasily. "Hey, what's going on?" The Marine didn't answer. He kept his eyes locked on the officer. Maya's voice was barely a whisper. "He knows them." The Marine exhaled slowly. He needed to think fast. If this officer was involved, there was no way he could trust that calling for backup would help. But if he made the wrong move now, he could put Maya in even more danger. The officer took another step forward and knocked on the glass. "Sir," he called out in an even tone. "Step outside. We just need to talk." The Marine glanced at Maya. Her whole body was shaking now. He leaned down just enough to speak to her without taking his eyes off the man outside. "Listen to me," he murmured. "I won't let anything happen to you, but I need you to trust me. Can you do that?" She hesitated, then nodded. He squeezed her hand once before straightening. His heart pounded as he made his decision. Slowly, he pulled out his phone and tapped the screen, pretending to pocket it. In reality, he left the line open with the emergency operator still listening. Then, keeping his other hand protectively on Maya's back, he stepped forward, stopping just before the automatic doors. The officer's expression remained calm. Too calm. "Evening," the officer said, his tone smooth. "Got a call about a disturbance. Thought I'd check in." The Marine didn't blink. "That right?" The officer nodded. "You mind stepping outside? Easier to talk that way." The Marine could feel Maya's small frame pressed against him, her breathing uneven. "No," he said firmly. "We're fine right here." Something in the officer's expression flickered, just for a second. A shift. The kind of shift the Marine had seen too many times before. A mask slipping. Then, before the officer could speak again, the sound of approaching sirens cut through the night. The Marine didn't let himself react, but inside, relief flooded him. The open phone line had worked. The officer stiffened. His eyes flicked toward the lot, where the faint glow of blue and red lights now danced against the pavement. For the first time, real tension showed on his face. Then, without another word, he turned. The Marine watched as the officer walked back toward his car, his steps quick, controlled. But before he reached it, he made a sharp motion toward the shadows near the pumps. A second later, another figure emerged, the man from before. Maya let out a quiet gasp. The Marine's entire body tensed, ready to act, but the moment the distant patrol cars turned into the lot, the two men bolted. They jumped into the sedan, the engine revving to life. Tires screeched as the car shot forward, speeding toward the highway. For a second, it felt like they were going to get away, but the approaching police cars cut them off just in time. The sedan swerved, trying to dodge, but there was nowhere left to go. Officers flooded the lot, weapons drawn, shouting commands. Within seconds, both men were yanked from the vehicle and forced to the ground. Maya clung to the Marine's side, her breaths coming in short, fast bursts. "It's over," he told her softly. "You're safe now." She didn't say anything, but after a long moment, she nodded. As more officers arrived, the Marine finally let himself exhale. He gave his statement, explaining everything he had seen, everything Maya had told him. The pieces fell into place. Maya had been taken days ago, her real father desperately searching for her. The men involved had ties to something bigger, something the authorities had been tracking for a while. And now, thanks to one small, desperate signal, the simple gesture Maya had made, they were caught. An hour later, as the lot cleared and the adrenaline finally faded, Maya stood beside the Marine, wrapped in a warm blanket an officer had given her. She looked up at him, her eyes filled with something new. Not just relief, but trust. "Thank you," she whispered. The Marine crouched beside her, offering a small, reassuring smile. "You were brave," he told her. "You saved yourself." Her fingers tightened around the blanket. Then, for the first time that night, she smiled. A short while later, a car pulled up, and a man rushed out. Maya's real father. The moment she saw him, her face crumpled, and she ran. He caught her in his arms, holding her tight, whispering her name over and over again. The Marine watched quietly, a warmth settling in his chest. He had done what he set out to do. As he turned to leave, Maya's father looked up, his eyes shining with gratitude. "I don't know how to thank you," he said, his voice thick with emotion. The Marine just gave a small nod. "Just take her home." And with that, he walked away, disappearing into the night.